All right, so welcome to the announcements. It's a little podcast I started because I retired. I didn't have anything better to do, and it's based off of the announcements I used to do back when I was principal. And so my guest today is John Fortney, the John Fortney, formerly of Missouri John Fortney, but now in another. I'm taking this show national. I want to say international, but we're not quite there yet. You're just a few miles away from being international. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're at, how you got there.
Yeah, we're only a few miles away from being international, but it's close enough by Missouri's schools. So, John Fortney, I'm currently the superintendent of schools for the Kearsarge Regional School District, which is based in New London, New Hampshire. We actually are 7 towns. The district would be considered a rural district, about 1,700 kids. But geographically, we're pretty big, about a third of the size of Rhode Island. I came here directly. I'm finishing up my first year in the role. I previously was in the Van Far School District in Northeast Missouri, about 45 minutes southwest of Hannibal. Was superintendent out there. Been a high school principal, high school assistant principal, high school social studies teacher, high school PE teacher. Everything I did was high school, but the funny thing is I actually was an alternative guy. My bachelor's degree is in anthropology, which is with an archaeology focus, which let me go back to school to get yet another degree. Love those liberal arts educations.
Right.
But so I did an alternative route to certification in Missouri. Started off as a paraprofessional and made it all the way to, the big seat of superintendency.
The show.
Yep. And have loved every step of the way. Have made, really, really love building relationships with families and kids and teachers and staff. And, so people made a move when I still had a lot of time left in my career, didn't want to retire and kind of figure something out. So we did a leap of faith. My wife's a retired special ed administrator she finished up in Fulton, Missouri, working with Beth and Ty Crane and all those guys out there. So if they're listening, hey.
But I don't think anybody actually watches this, but shout out.
I mean, anything's possible. We've got a TV show out here that we started this year just to kind of improve our storytelling, kind of Joe Sanfilippo kind of thing. And at first it didn't get much traction, but then after a while, you never know when and what's going to hit. And, you got to, it's better to be on the train than watching it go by.
Right. Well, you'll notice we're on Zoom today because my wife told me it's not in the budget for us to do this in person. So we're on Zoom. This is a new experience for me.
And tried.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, and she's like, no. What I was going to say is that we know each other through some things that happen in Missouri here. One is Leadership Academy. That's kind of where we got acquainted. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into things when we start talking about our topic. So I always have a joke of the day. This is a John Fortney original. Go ahead, tell us.
What do you call a fish with no eyes?
I don't know. What do you call a fish with no eyes?
Fish.
Fish. Yep. That's a good one. That's a good dad joke. So,
and I am both that, and we've got 2 grandkids and you can never ever not have time for a knuckle sandwich joke. 100%.
For sure.
Never
for sure.
Opportunity.
So for all of you young whippersnappers who don't have grandkids yet, there you go.
It happens.
Hey, I noticed that under Weird Facts, you have a lot of New Hampshire specific. And wait a minute, do they call it New Hampshire or New Hampshire?
I say New Hampshire.
Okay.
Although you have to, somebody was asking the other days, like, they say I have a pretty bad Midwest accent out here, which is hilarious. I know, but all I can hear is the New England, the shout, the things of that. Yeah. My grandson's was in school last spring. We brought him up early to finish up, and he had a stuffed turtle that he had to take out around and get pictures of for a week. They kind of rotated through the classes. And I said, "What's the turtle's name?" And he said, "It's Tucka." But then he put it on paper. It was Tucker, Tucker. But because of that,
New England phonetics.
It'll have the little adjustment there, so you learn to speak some of that, kind of like the St. Louis, the farty far of St. Louis, that you get the milk sometimes,
Right.
the regional stuff. But no, it is. I thought it would be fun, since I'm living in New Hampshire, to include some specific things.
All right, let's hear it. What are your facts?
In there. One is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was created in Dover, New Hampshire, and they actually have a location that was it. There is a manhole cover in the street with a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle etching engraving into it. So I have been to it. It exists, and it really is real.
That is travel worthy. I mean, if I ever make it to New Hampshire, I'm going to get a picture of that.
Yes, that is worth that one. The other one is chicken fingers. Was invented in a restaurant called the Puritan Backroom in Manchester, which is one of the biggest cities here.
Well, then I am forever indebted to the New Hampshireites, because chicken fingers and hamburger, those are my only two choices, right?
There you go.
So,
like Chicken Patty Wednesday, there are things that you knew the kids were going to
Chicken Patty Wednesday.
And then the last one I had was First American in Space is from New Hampshire. Alan Shepard is from Derry, New Hampshire, and hit a golf ball 2.5 miles while visiting the moon in 1971. With a drive like that,
that's impressive.
You don't have to putt.
I think you're still in the rough, though, on the moon.
Oh yeah. Well, it's all the rough. You're in the sand no matter what.
Yeah. So I always have a Mount Rushmore for my guests. Who is your Mount Rushmore? And these are 4 people. Some people fudge a little bit and may have more than one, but 4 people: edu-hero, a colleague, a mentor, and a non-educator. So who would you list as your Mount Rushmore?
So edu-hero would be one of 2 people. Brudy Kefele was I've seen him speak a couple of times. Just a huge mission-driven, big picture kind of person. I like him a lot. Mike Rutherford, it's not a cheap plug unless it provides me a discount on working with them, because we've been doing some of that.
Come on, Mike, give him a discount.
Yep, I'd say Mike probably is there right now, because Mike was a game changer. Mike came into my world at a time when I was really pliable as far as leadership goes, and the importance of actionable feedback and how do you build
absolutely
better relationship with people and all that. Plus,
great
Missouri leadership development thing. So I would say right now, it's neck and neck between Brudy Kefele and Mike Rutherford. It depends on the day. So we have that. The colleague one, recently retired superintendent, a guy named Scott Hayes, was my assistant superintendent when I was an assistant principal in Owensville. And Scott just really poured into me in a way that people had never had up to that time. Mm-hmm. Saw something that I didn't see myself, and will be forever grateful and thankful for those moments with him.
We always talk about how most of us are in leadership because someone believed in us more than we believed in ourselves. And so always look for someone like that.
Yeah. And that's going to be my mentor. That again, you're getting old when all your people are retiring on you, Brad. The Dr. Ryan Sherp was retired recently as the high school principal at Fox High School in south of St. Louis County in Arnold, Missouri. So Ryan was an assistant principal when I got hired on to be. They called me it was like administrative liaison or whatever. Basically, I was the principal's bully at Lindbergh High School, which is a big high school in South St. Louis County. And Sherp was the one who said I needed to go back to school and get my degree in administration.
Yeah,
I loved what I did, but he was hammering on me about the whole thing. There probably not find a bigger human being with a bigger heart for service and to love of people than Ryan Sherp. So 100% he is that mentor that I can never ever repay back for what he did.
We need to tag him whenever we're done. We'll tag him. Are you Facebook friends with him?
Oh yeah,
I'm really only on the Facebook. Sometimes I'll put it on Twitter. So yeah, share it wherever.
I'll send him the link. But when he retired, I emailed him and just thanked him for his thing. That's one of the things I think we miss out is we talk a lot about people, but we don't always take the time or make the time to talk to people.
Right. And
just those remembrances, that's a big thing. We'll go as we go in community talking our topic. We'll go into that, but just take that moment to just recognize that person. So I've tried to make a very concerted effort of that in my world, that as people have poured into me, make sure that you take the moment to recognize that, number one, I see that you poured into me. Here's what I'm doing with it, and I'm going to keep it going.
Yeah. Oh, last one. One non-educator.
I'm a clown, you know this, and so I would put Elmo on there just because people would walk by and go and not be able to say anything. You have to like that, like some. I appreciate Elmo's energy.
Yeah.
It would be Tigger or Baloo would be other ones. It would be a non-human that would be in the non-educator role, just because it would cause people to look at it longer.
Well, and you do learn some good lessons from those characters.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
Big energy, loving, supportive, and the crazy arms.
Right. So, what is the weirdest thing you ever have happen to you as a principal?
Well, so I was the one that always sticks out, and I was an assistant principal in Owensville, and I had a dad call me and tell me that we were battling on getting his son to school. Now, understand that folks that don't know where Owensville is, we're kind of the central part of the state of Missouri. Which is kind of the central part of the country. And this dad said that his son could not come to school because he told his dad that there was Ebola in the high school, that we had a confirmed Ebola case at the high school.
Yeah, I heard about the Owensville Ebola breakout.
Yes. Well, and I tried to explain to the dad that, number one, none of our students or staff that we were aware of had traveled to anywhere in Africa to potentially pick it up. And that if it did happen, that I promised him that it would be picked up by like NBC, MSNBC, Fox, CNN. Like, it would be national news if we had an Ebola case. Needless to say, his son did not attend school that day for fear of contracting Ebola, but he never did, and everybody survived.
Well, good. You get some points for creativity on that.
No, but we did have a very long conversation of trying to manipulate your dad when I saw him the next week.
Right.
So,
yeah. Hey, I always try to throw in a few motivational quotes or just timely quotes. So what do you got here? You added some here that.
I got a couple in there. One I like is one day or day one. You decide. Which is it? Is it one day I'm going to do something, or is today day one?
Today is day one. That's my diet. One day I'm going to go on a diet. Today is not the day.
I've decided not to go on the diet. I have other things to invest my time and effort into other than trying to.
Me too. And it's Chick-fil-A.
There we go. That whole thing. We just got a Chipotle not too far out here, which you wouldn't think that was a big deal, but it wrapped around the building twice with cars. Like people were camping. I remember when Chick-fil-A first came into St. Louis and people were camping out 2 days before. Now, I appreciate a good burrito, and I am not one to sit and say anything like that, but I know of very few things that I would sit in a lawn chair for more than a couple of hours for. Well, and Chipotle and Chick-fil-A is not it.
Well, let me explain the Chick-fil-A thing, though. So at Chick-fil-A, when they open a new store, if you are one of the first 100 customers, they give you a gift card for free Chick-fil-A for a year, which really amounts to about 52 sandwiches. And I know this because I have gotten a Chick-fil-A for a year card because they opened one near my school on the north side of Springfield. And rather than do the line thing like they usually do, they decided to bless an organization. And so they gave all of my teachers and myself the gift card for free Chick-fil-A for a year. And let me tell you what, that was a blessing. I used that card hard. I mean,
I would say I would have gotten something like that. That's different.
Yeah.
But just to get in line to get I've had Chipotle, I've had Chick-fil-A. An In-N-Out burger opens up or a Whataburger. We might be talking that way. But under that point, the only other quote that I had, this one was George Bernard Shaw. Said, the reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man. And it kind of fell in line. I like Steve Jobs. He talks about I used it as a quote in a graduation speech one time that Apple hires the rebels, the people the square pegs that don't want to fit in a round hole kind of thing. I think that part of that quote for me is a big thing is we're really at a crossroads. Public education, everywhere you look. I know Missouri and New Hampshire is no different. We're taking shots and taking hits all the time, and so we're at an opportunity to really reinvent ourselves and really kind of evolve. But to do that, we're going to have to buck the system, and we're going to have to really be willing to do some things that we weren't willing to do before, and that's uncomfortable. Change is uncomfortable. Just ask the people that have to deal with me for the last 9 months in this role as they go. I thank them today.
Change is great. You go first. That's
exactly.
Everybody likes change until it's them that has to change. So
yeah, until it smacks you in the face, and then all of a sudden we're good from there.
For sure. So our topic that we kind of settled on today to talk about was community, and we settled on that mainly, I think, because you have moved to a new community, and you have to learn to develop community, and and I'm sure you've done that everywhere you've been. I always try to go by three things. What is it? What does it look like? And how can I do it? And the first thing I have in my notes is what is it? And I have a definition: a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals. That's the definition of community. So talk to me about community.
Well, I think that definition is good. I think community is so important when we're talking about public education. You've got to get there. There was a time when the village raised the child, and that area has gone, and now it feels like at times we're paranoid of our neighbors and who's in charge. But if you think about the importance of community, think about this thought. We moved 1,300 miles away, and we took we're raising our grandkids. We have custody of them. The whole separate conversation. But we put them on a bus with a stranger to a building of strangers with the faith and trust that they were going to take care of the two most important things in our world. Mm-hmm. And we have families that do that every day.
Yep.
And you don't build anything unless you have some kind of trust. And that only happens if you have connection. So when we talk about the idea, for me, community is the idea of making connections. It's investment. It is, I'm a pronoun guy. Is it mine, yours, or ours? Right. If it's yours, then everything good and bad is yours. If it's mine, same thing. But how do we create ours? I will tell you that when I interview folks and when I have conversation with our team, I try to avoid the term family, because I think family is families will overlook norms and boundaries in the scope of saying, but we're family. And so I spend a lot of time talking about building high-performing teams and building communities of trust.
Right.
And so when we look at that, I think you've got to be you have to be willing to do the tough work. The hardest part about building community is honesty and owning up to things. And I think a lot of it is, I've spent a lot of time here. The district that I'm leading now is a great district. Don't be mistaken. But there is not one district across the country that doesn't have anything that they can improve on. There is no perfect district, and there's always ways to better communicate, better relate. And so community is one of those things that you never attain it. Like there's never, okay, we've reached it and now we can go do something else.
Yep.
Yeah. It's like hunger. You always are going to be hungry. You're always going to be thirsty. You're always going to have to work on community. It is the ultimate relationship, I think, that'll make or break it. Because if you've got a strong community, you can try things like we're talking about this evolution. Mm-hmm. But if your community is weak or your community is hostile, it impacts and affects everything that you can or can't do.
Right. So I, of course, take a lot of my material for this podcast out of Joe Sanfilippo and Jeffrey Zuhl's book. I've been going through the topics that they have, and they have community as a topic. In fact, they found the same definition I did through probably a Google search. So yeah. One of the things that they say is a strong school staff community fosters connections, collaborations, and mutual support among staff members, administrators, and support staff. And this can include activities like sharing teaching strategies, attending workshops together, blended social and academic discussions. It also involves creating a supportive environment where staff members feel valued and can openly share ideas and seek help. So when you go into a new district, like you move from Missouri to New Hampshire, how do you create an environment where your staff members feel like they are, I don't say part of a family, but are included, how do you do that?
Well, you have to be intentional with your time and your effort. You've got to, I think you have to look at to me, the biggest thing, what has always worked for me is getting close to things. I've got, my mom is and dad are big quote people, but mom grew up in Kentucky and used to say it's hard to hate what you're close to. And so you try to get as close as you can to people to learn.
Right.
I think you have to model what you're expecting. So if you want people to be vulnerable, you have to be willing to be vulnerable. And so I spend a lot of one-on-one time early on, as much as I can to really get to know people. You could say it's strategic, and partially it kind of is, but it's also how I'm driven. I need to know how you tick. So if Brad, if you're on my team, we're going to spend time, because it's important for me to know who you are. It's important for me to know what values you have and what things matter to you. Because if a project comes along the line, then I'm like, man, Brad would be perfect leading this. And here's why. So when I bring it to you, then we have those times. And, Mike Rutherford, artist and teacher guy, spends a lot of time talking about quality versus quantity. And that a lot of times teachers are very concerned, not so much on the quality of touches, but the number of touches people make. So the goal, this is why I picked up when I was a high school principal. I was in every classroom every day. Didn't matter. Some classrooms was no more than, hey, good morning, Brad, how are you?
Right.
To other ones where I may be doing a walkthrough.
Same thing. Yeah.
So the deeper the investment that you make into people, there on any given time, on a long enough timeline, there is going to be conflict.
Yeah.
And so you have to build those relationships and make those social capital investments early. To me, it's sharing the mission and vision. This is what I believe about stuff. Vulnerability. I mean, we talked a lot here early on with what coming out is, for me, it was a lot of also fact finding, not only getting to know about people, but talk to me about your role. Talk to me about what you do. One of my favorite questions is, if I gave you a magic wand and you could fix one thing today, what would you Harry Potter right now? And then you can dig into and get a good dive in onto what their struggles are. But I think the thing too about community is spending, the old joke, you have 2 ears and one mouth, so you can listen twice as much as you speak.
Right.
You have to spend time listening and hearing what people say. And when you do that early, my biggest advice to anybody, you have to turn off the defensiveness, because we quickly want to try to defend why a decision was made or why things happened or whatever the case is. Own the fact that mistakes get made, and believe that like for me coming in, there are decisions that were made prior to me being here that I would not have made. But I can't and won't bash those, because people make the best decisions with the information they have. Period. And so the question is if it's a screw up, it's now my screw up because I'm the superintendent. And you have to own those things. And you look at folks, and when you build that trust going, I'm sorry that happened to you, we're going to do better. But then you have to do better. So there's always that coming from that show me state. That's a lot of it too. So I think there's a lot of steps to that community. But the biggest thing coming back to is a lot of listening and understanding that it never, ever ends. That is a rowboat. You have to continually keep moving.
Yep. I think anytime you go into a new job, you need to be a learner first, right? So you're going to be a listener, a learner, just to kind of see what's going on and what makes people tick. You and I have been involved in a lot of similar activities, professional development. One of them being is Leadership Academy, where you spend a weekend building community with a group of people and go through all of these trials and work together and come out on the other side of it. Capturing kids' hearts is another thing that you and I have both done. That is all about community building, and getting people kind of in the same page. So those things just help us get to where we need to be to help build community. How do I do it?
No, I was just going to tell you, the thing that's interesting about outdoor leadership experience and capturing kids' hearts is you get deep sense of community with two vastly different experiences.
Absolutely.
Outdoor leadership experience is very much we're taking these people out into the woods and we're having these shared trials and tribulations together. But you look at what happens with capturing kids' hearts is you take in some cases you take a known commodity like a team that's already there, or I've participated in a number of flagship trainings where I've watched 50, where not everybody knew each other. So let's call strangers to people form a community as tight as we saw an outdoor leadership experience, but never leaving the comfort of a conference center. So it's possible to happen in both of those things, but it's the shared experience and the intentionality of what those things are going to look like that makes the difference.
Well, and I would add, it's the vulnerability. In both of those experiences, you have to be vulnerable with other people, and vulnerability builds trust, and trust builds community. And so I think that's the natural order of things. You have to be out there, put yourself out there, get connected with people, build the trust, and then the community follows.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's the how do you do it. So intentionally or unintentionally, communities will form. We will find more success when we are an active member of building communities, and that comes straight out of Sanfilippo and Zul's book. So what are we doing, to build community, and how can we build community? I think it's being present and being vulnerable. So,
well, very much so. And I think it's consistency. Like when we talk about, like you look at classrooms and things like that, like Capturing Kids' Hearts talking about that engagement and that exploring piece, the greeting kids at the door and good things. And then when we, with our leadership squad, we meet for several hours, a couple of times a month within the principals, and then what we call the 9, which is the leaders of the principal buildings within my central office staff. And we have a social contract that we have built that we review every single time. These are the 4 questions we agreed to. This is what we're doing. And then always asking the same question every time. How are we doing? And you've got to give people time to do that. But I've been doing a lot of work with Patrick Lencioni's stuff on dysfunctions of a team and how do you build trust, and conflict is important. So early on, it's setting those stages, but then it's consistent within doing that. So that way there's predictability. My team will tell you, they know, if you ask any of them, they know a couple of things about me. One, if there is a 2 or 3 hour block in my schedule, I'm not sitting in my office, I'm in a school.
Right. You're driving to one of your 7 towns.
Exactly, because I am, and we're moving. Yep. The other thing is whenever we have leadership meetings, we do, I found this thing called the Delve Deck, which is a fun set of questions. I'll send you the link. It's got a couple different ones. Things of like if you could be any animal, what would you be? Like stuff that just breaks the ice to get things going. So we start with that. Then we go through our social contract. Then we talk about our Lencioni stuff. Then we're in the game.
Right.
Before we get to the schedule. Right. And anytime somebody says, I don't have time for that, I will tell you that you're missing the boat, because a 5 to 15 minute investment in your people is going to get you so much more on the back end.
So one of the things that I have on my list of notes is the first 5, last 5. And so, what are you doing the first 5 minutes of your meeting, and what are you doing the last 5 minutes of the meeting? And what's important is why that's important is because those are the 2 ends that we remember. We remember the beginning and the end, and all the stuff in the middle. Maybe we took notes or whatever. But your first 5 is based on your attitudes. You're trying to engage people, get them, their attitude right for the meeting. And then your last 5 is what were our goals? What did we cover for this meeting? This is why we had this meeting, right? And so that fits perfect with that. And yeah.
No, I'm telling you, if you have not had a chance to see anything with Capturing Kids' Hearts, I would highly recommend you take a time to do it. Reach out. I'm sure you have contacts just like I do. Yep. Feel free to do that. We put you in touch. In fact, the Missouri and New Hampshire guy is the same person, because we'd had a connection. So he followed me up here. So we got Garrett.
Garrett. So, I don't have any sponsors for this podcast, just so anybody knows. I'm not getting any kickback out of all of this, but I do work for a company called Kid Account, and so I get to go to trade shows, and I get to talk with the other vendors. Before I was on the other side of that, I was a principal, and I would walk through the vendor area, and I didn't make eye contact because I didn't want people hounding me to buy stuff. I mean, I hate that. Now I'm the guy. I'm the guy. I'm trying to make eye contact, right? And so I have run into Garrett a couple of times, and he was at the Missouri Secondary Principals Conference with a guy from California who maybe you knew as well. I don't know, but they did a session for the people here in Missouri. And capturing kids' hearts was kind of big here in Missouri, and then it kind of slowed down, I think. But he's back. Well, he's back. He's taken the reins of this area, and he actually, I think, lives in Texas, maybe. And
You live in Baytown, Texas, down by Houston.
right, so he's got Missouri to New Hampshire.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's nobody in New Hampshire. The only reason Garrett has New Hampshire is because he and I built a relationship over the years of working together. So it's an untouched market, but it's still good community, and building high performing teams is important, whether you're in education, corporate America, or on the sports field. I mean,
Right.
if you put two people or more together, they've got to figure out a way how to be high performing in order to succeed.
Right. So, so to summarize all of that, if any of you people would like to sponsor my podcast, Garrett from Capturing Kids' Hearts, or Patrick Lencioni from the Table Group, or whoever,
Just saying.
I'm open.
Just saying.
I'm open.
It's there.
So,
It's there.
all
right. We'll put this out on the X.
Yep.
Let's see who picks it up.
Well, we will. We'll see. The X and the Facebook and the Blue Skies and whatever else is out there now.
Anything that you can do. If we can get it out there, we'll put it out there.
Hey, so it has been a pleasure to have you on the show, and I always end the show with three things: you have value, you have impact, and what you're doing matters. That's kind of my launch for the podcast. So I appreciate you being here. Anything else to add from New Hampshire?
Just we've got great maple syrup, and I cannot wait to get you and Jenny out this way to do some trainings. I'm working on that. I got to build some more community here, so that way people trust the Missouri guy a little bit more.
For sure. Leadership Academy would be great to start out in New Hampshire, and it's our 40th year. We actually are planning a 40th year celebration this year. One program to last 40 years in the educational landscape is actually impressive. And so will you be coming back to be a part of that?
I would please keep me involved and in the loop, and I would love to come back. That would be something I would return for.
I'll definitely keep your email on the list. So anyway, John Fortney, always awesome. Good to talk to you, and keep it going out in New Hampshire.
Thanks, sir.